I think what we'll do is we'll crack on. So hello and welcome from me. We're going to do a brief webinar today on this offering that we have. I'm the head of innovation here. So I'm just going to run through a brief introduction of the scheme for schools. I'll share my desktop so you should be able to see my presentation now. Put this into presentation mode. So first of all, most of you probably haven't come across EvoEnergy before, so just a couple of slides on who we are. So we've been around 5 years, done 6,000 installations. We're one of the most experienced solar installers in the UK. We act on behalf of quite a few brand names that you will deal with otherwise, perhaps Empower, B&Q, but probably not the NFU. We have won every major national award in our industry for solar, and we're also endorsed by Which Magazine and Martin Lewis Money Saving Expert if you use that service. So I really just mentioned that to give you some security that we understand the technology, we know how to install it, and we know how to maintain it in the long term. So the background to this program came out of a relationship that we had with Nottingham City Council, which goes back a few years, and they wanted to move and do something about the rise over time in electricity prices that they were facing. If any of you have followed this, for this sort of class of electricity user, the rises have been about over 10% a year for the last 8 years is the average. They also have various sustainability aims that they're trying to meet, and the upshot of which was this particular program, where we paid for the installation of solar on a mix of schools and leisure centres and other council buildings, maintain it for 20 years, and giving them a discount on their electricity, which is the same mechanism that we are using for other schools. So we've actually managed on the back of this to have more money to roll out to other schools, colleges across the country under basically the same terms. So what I will talk to here is an example of how they made the business case within Nottingham City Council. So if you look on the left, this is a group of 13 schools. Currently, at today's grid prices, they were paying about 10p with the deal. The bill was £85,000 this last year for the electricity to those schools. With this particular situation, they were going to, in 10 years' time, be paying about £132,000 according to the models that they were using and the numbers that they were getting from DEC, the Department of Energy and Climate Change, for electricity price rises. So the box on the right is an example where there's solar panels on the schools. And we actually sell the electricity to the council at 8p a kilowatt hour, giving them 2p, so 20% off their initial rate. That saves them £11,000 in today's money. And as prices rise for electricity, those savings will become greater over time. So 10 years' time, they're saving £42,000 out of that potential electricity bill. So that's the mechanism. I'll now go through some of the detail so you start to understand some of the detail that sits behind that. So here are the principles of the offer. So we at EvoEnergy pay for the installation of the solar panels. We also pay for the maintenance of those solar panels over 20 years, so you should have no outlay whatsoever. You then will pay a certain price for the energy, say 8p, say 7.5p. So depending on exactly where you are in the country and how sunny your roof is, actually, is what governs that. So you will get an instant saving on your electricity bill. We license the airspace and the attachments to the roof, which, if we continue talking, is important. It's not a lease for various reasons that you also probably understand. And this is a contract that can be transferred. Is that someone who's just joined?
Yes, I have.
Sorry. Shall I just mute your line and then yeah, here we are. So I'm just talking through, for the person who's just joined, I'm talking through the principle of the offer. So the fact that we will pay for the installation and maintenance of the panels for 20 years. We will sell the electricity to you at a price that's cheaper than your grid price. You can transfer the license that we will take out with 20 years for you. It gives you a hedge for that portion of the energy that you're using off the roof against future energy costs, and it can help you get the green flags and other environmental credentials that you may need within your own domain. We depend on this government feed-in tariff scheme to make this work. So it's a process where we're putting money up front over 20 years and then recouping it back over that 20-year period. I'll show you later actually the relationships between all the people in a bit more detail, but that is principally how it's funded. So this chart here just makes the point. I'll obviously circulate the slides so you can use them if you need be. This just makes the point that energy prices are rising. We, for instance, if we start selling you electricity at 8p or 7.5p, as in the green blocks, we link that to RPI, and we forecasted RPI here at 2.5%. You can see after 25 years that electricity is only about 12 or 13p. The blue bars show DEC's forecast rate for energy price rises, showing that after 25 years, electricity will be at 27, 28p. So this is just trying to show you that you might save 2p in year 1, but in year 10 you'll be saving an awful lot more than 2p. The process is relatively straightforward to explain. So we can obviously have a look at your properties. We can do an awful lot from Google initially to give you an idea. We'll need some data from you about what energy you do use. August is the best month if you have the bills for that, because it shows us your base load, being an education establishment, how much you are paying currently. And on that basis, we might be able to make you an offer to license the roof. Once you've agreed that in principle, we will pay for and undertake seeking the permissions from planning departments or grid connecting organizations. And if those are successful, we will then install the PV system. That system will be licensed for 20 years, and on year 20, we'll sell it to you for £1, and you will then get any electricity that system then produces at zero cost from that time onwards. The panels, we normally get asked at this point, will the system still be working? Well, we will obviously have maintained it for 20 years. Most panels and the panels we will use have a warranty of 25 years. You will still need to pay some maintenance, but it will be a lot less than the value of the electricity that you would actually get for free off that roof. And we can tell you sample maintenance sums that you might have to pay just to keep the system running. So what's the catch? It's a question we get asked the most. Here are the actors that are involved in making this scheme work. There is the government feed-in tariff scheme. So the catch is that you and I and everyone else on this webinar is paying for this through our energy bills. So the things you read about in terms of paying for offshore wind farms or insulation for the elderly through the Warm Front program, that is all being collected through our energy bills. This is exactly the same scheme. So we use that. We have a partner called Consensus Capital, who are a finance firm. They basically license the roof space, and they advance the money for the installation and the O&M, so that you can get the cheap electricity over the 20-year period. Now, the thing to stress about these relationships are that they are mutually independent. So there is no one here who can ride off into the sunset after several years. We all rely on the fact that the solar panels keep producing for as much of the time as possible. You obviously need them to keep producing so you get a source of cheap electricity. consensus capital needs them to keep producing because otherwise they have no revenue stream. We need them to keep producing because otherwise we will be not paid for our O&M agreement. So everyone in this particular group needs the solar panels to keep working. So just a reassurance to you there. Suitability of the roof. Obviously, we look at solar all day, so we know a good solar roof from a bad one. But just in terms of guidelines, we're looking for the larger, more southerly roofs. There are some economies of scale to installation that we'd like to take advantage of. So just in terms of idea, you need a roof space about 120 meters squared or 1,200 square feet if you work in that. If it's a pitched roof, or about double the size if it's flat, just because there are gaps between the panels on a flat roof installation. That end-field lock one on the left will be a typical size. If you imagine another sort of array to the right of those two squares that you can see installed. And in terms of next steps, we can do an awful lot over the phone initially. I mean, what most people at the moment seem to want is you want to have an idea personalized to their portfolio, so we can have a look at the portfolio on Google perhaps, or with some plans that you might have. You look at your electricity usage, find out how much you're paying, and maybe make you an estimated offer on that basis, just that you can use internally. So we just need some details about the properties, your electricity arrangements, and a little bit more perhaps about what's on the roof in terms of covering, the EPC status, and so on. Just on that EPC status, you need an EPC certificate. You don't necessarily have to have a certain level on this particular program. So that is probably the best next step for anybody listening to this particular webinar. Drop me an email, and then we can give you something personalized to you. So I'll probably leave it there unless anyone has written something into me as a particular question that I can take at this time. I'll just wait a couple of minutes. I'll also upload this presentation onto this technology called WebEx. So what you would be able to do, you'll get an email after this webinar finishes. You will then be able to log in and download that presentation and use it internally. Or as I say, email me and we'll help you out. Okay. Oh. Okay, that's a good question. So Andrew's asked what happens if the roof under the panels needs repairs during the 20-year period. So the terms basically say that you are free to obviously repair your own roofs as long as you remove the panels and replace them during that repair. And Sarah Staley, she's asked, how does this compare to us buying panels and using energy for free? Which of course you can do, and EvoEnergy also has that type of offer. In that situation, you would be the school paying for it, and the school would be taking the government feed-in tariff. You get a payback, so as you say, all your electricity would be free, but you would have to front up the initial capital, pay for the maintenance. The payback periods at the moment for this size of installation are probably between 7 and 10 years, if that gives you an idea. If you want, we can give you a comparison when you look at this kind of offer. Sarah's also asked, do we need to purchase all additional energy from Evo? The answer is no. It's not a contractual term that you have to purchase all of the energy from Evo, but what we ask you to do is buy any that is available. So if the solar panels are producing, you must take that first. Now, actually that happens automatically. It's not something that you need to get involved with. Your property will always use the solar energy before it uses grid energy automatically. It's just an electrical fact. So what we do, and one of the reasons we ask for your electricity bills, is we try and size the system correctly so that you're not going to be producing far, far more energy than you would ever use. We try and size it so that you'll use pretty much all of the energy that we produce. All right, which is why we ask for the August bill, because that's the period where you're using probably the least, and it's the period when we're probably producing the most from the solar. Okay. Perfect. Sarah says thank you. Must have been the right answer, or at least a good one. Okay, so Andrew has asked, we have several different buildings. Does the solar energy only power the building it is attached to? It all depends on where the, well, it depends on the electrical schematic within your building portfolio. Okay, so one of the things we will do is we will obviously survey the property and see where your main points are. What I've seen to date with schools is that it's a real mixed bag as to whether it has a main endpoint in each particular building. So it's something that we could look at when we survey the buildings, unless you know up front. I'm sorry I can't be more specific than that, Andrea, but it's probably going to depend how it's been done. And all these schools that I've seen so far seem to have been expanded rather piecemeal. So sorry I can't be more specific. All right, so Mark's asked, is reduced cost only for electricity produced by panels, or is it for all electricity used, including from the grid? Okay, that's worth clarifying. So you still need to have the relationship with your grid energy provider, your EDF or your British Gas, and they will be your main energy provider. We are an additional agreement on the side or on top of that, and the price that we agree is for the price from the solar panels only, just so we're absolutely clear. The other thing that's probably worth saying about that, Mark, who asked the question, is I've noticed a lot of people lease a certain amount of line space with schools, and there's probably other charges that are on your bill that you could save on if you're actually drawing less from the grid, just when you're renegotiating your contract. Sarah Staley's asked how long the scheme will be available. It is actually not more than weeks, months. We've got a real hurry on this. We have raised this fund, £7 million from Consensus. They are looking to have it installed on roofs by May the 1st, and that is purely because we have visibility of the government feed-in tariff regime until May the 1st at the current rates. It's not to say it won't be available after May the 1st, but the offers may be slightly less attractive if the government feed-in tariffs do change. So the best rates will probably be available before the 1st of May. In terms of how that actually plays out, if we go back to this process here, it probably needs about 6 to 8 weeks for us to go through the development process of getting permissions. So as long as people have agreed in principle by the end of February, we should be fine. Okay. Yeah. So Tom's discussing the level of interest. We only opened this scheme up in the middle of December, because that's when we rolled out of the Nottingham programme and secured funding for this. I actually was talking to the CEO of the IAA at 11 o'clock this morning, and she seems supportive of this scheme. We've also been in touch with the IAAS, the procurement organisation, who also seem supportive in terms of publicising it, because they basically see it as a way of securing funding for academies. So they have been, the challenge I've got with them is whether they can move fast enough in terms of publicity because they have a sort of cycle. So if we do get further funding, I think we might engage with them in terms of their mailing list and so on, and events later in the year. I just think at this time they've realised that all their publicity can't go quite fast enough. But certainly, if you speak to them, they seem to be very supportive of this type of scheme. Certainly, what they said to me. Okay, I'll just leave it another minute, and if we don't get any more questions for a minute, then I'll close it off and